All right, Discovery. This is the last part of Act 1. So we have Part 3 here. So again, like I would suggest, watching Parts 1 and 2. Again, next week, we're going to look at the Polanski version of Act 1 for Macbeth. And then we're going to look at the Gould version the following week. Again, with Act 1 for Macbeth. And again, you're looking at, each of these directors as though they're like a student, right? So you're evaluating. So one of the jobs of a teacher is to be able to sort of evaluate which, how a student does according to, the analysis that the teacher uses prior to actually, creating the class. So in a way, it's the same situation here. We actually read the source material, so anyway, you want to definitely go back and look at those notes in terms of, what the cathartic effects of Act 1 should be, as well as what the archetypal effects of Act 1 should be. And then how does Shakespeare go about using the literary techniques to actually create those archetypal and cathartic effects, okay? And these are pretty much the backbone of pretty much every criteria that you're going to use to evaluate whether or not something is going to be a good story or a bad story. All right, so moving on with the Orson Welles version. Again, this is part 3, so you should be looking at parts 1 and 2 prior to watching this.
There's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. But where's Macbeth, the thane of Cawdor? Oh, worthy Cawdor, would thou hadst less deserved that the proportion both of thanks and payment might have been mine.
The service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself.
Noble Banquo, thou is no less deserved, nor must be known no less to have done so. Give me your hand.
Now again, here, it's a situation where the more cathartic of a connection that we have with King Duncan, the greater the cathartic effect when Macbeth kills him. So Shakespeare is sort of like looking down the road, pretty much wants any director of this play to really feel for Duncan. And you can see that when you analyze the actual text of the play. The actual text of the play has this connotation of Duncan being very meek and humble. And Macbeth himself says this when he sort of flounders during the rising action and thinks of reasons why he should not kill Duncan. Okay? So it's very important for a good storyteller or a good interpreter of Macbeth to make sure that the audience viewing this really, really understands how good of a person Duncan is. Okay? All right, here we go. Okay, so what happens is he has skipped over this part where Duncan talks about the fact that he will make Macbeth full of growing, right? I have begun to plant thee and will make you full of growing. This has been omitted. So we're moving straight into the murder scene. Now again, the massive problem with that is the fact that he has created this situation where we ourselves are, missing the reasons in terms of why Macbeth should not do this. And one of those massive reasons being, hey, Duncan is going to personally take charge of Macbeth's career, right? Okay.
This guest of summer, the temple-haunting martlet, does approve by his loved mansionry that the heaven's breath smells wooingly here. No jutty, frieze, buttress, nor coign of vantage, but this bird hath made his pendant bed and procreate cradle. Where they most breed and haunt, I have observed, the air is delicate.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we'll jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips.
Now, one thing that Wells does good with this particular part is that long, drawn-out note that he uses. And for the most part, he uses music for setting very well. Okay, so that's 1916 in terms of setting and music. Right. So that long drawn out note is meant to create the cathartic effect of like tension.
When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers who shall bear the guilt of our great quell?
Bring forth men, children.
So again, here, it's a situation where he talks about the fact that, I don't want to do this, right? And then they have this argument. And Lady Macbeth uses gender to convince him, right? By insulting his manhood, to convince him to move forward, right? So again, one of the misnomers is the idea that Lady Macbeth makes him do these things, right? No, if you just, that's pretty much equated to saying, well, if somebody called some guy a girl or a sissy or something like that, and he goes ahead and does this, now he can say, oh well, they made me do it. No, that's not the case, right? The agency still is on Macbeth here. Lady Macbeth, influences him. The witches just the same as the witches influence, just the same as Banquo influences, just the same as King Duncan influences. But at the end of the day, the agency or the choices remain with Macbeth. Okay, here we go. But yeah, definitely what is missing here is the argument that they have back and forward, because of the fact that you're showing the rising action of the internal struggle that is going on in Macbeth between his dark side and his light side. All right. His ambition versus his loyalty, the lack of agency versus his own agency, disdaining fortune versus accepting the witch's prophecies.
For thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males.
Stephen!
Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy to of his own chamber and use their very daggers that they have done?
Who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamour roar upon his death.
Leave all the rest to me. How goes the night, Orson?
The moon is down. I have not heard the clock.
Okay. All right, so that's the final part, and then we're going into Act 2. All right, so keep in mind, I would say that Wells does a very good job in terms of lighting, his usage of, during a black and white era, and anything that you see during the like the 1950s is going to be in black and white. You didn't really get into color until the 1960s. And his usage at this point of light and dark and shadows to create a cathartic effect is really, I think, is really stellar. His usage of music, with the banging of the drums and the usage of, like, for example, the single the single violin note to create tension, to create that catharsis is also very good. But then there are all these parts that he omits that sort of takes away from the archetype of what Shakespeare is saying in terms of agency, and what Shakespeare is also saying in terms of the character arc of Macbeth. So I know what kind of grade, if Wells was my student, I know what kind of grade I would give him. But think about what kind of grade you would give him. If he was an actual student, what kind of grade you would give him as a storyteller. All right. So take care and have a great weekend.